Hi, I'm Chris Ferguson. If you want to stay in the action, you need to manage your money wisely. There are ups and downs in poker, and if you don't look after your bankroll, you'll find yourself on the rail, watching when you really want to be playing. No bankroll management strategy in the world is going to turn a losing poker player into a winning one. But I know a lot of winning poker players that are broke because they don't use proper bankroll management. They can't survive the losing streaks because they play too high. What I'm going to show you are bankroll management strategies that are going to keep you in the game if you're a winning player, and are going to keep you playing at small limits if you're a losing player until you're able to beat those limits. And once you're a winning player at those limits, then you get to move up. Here's what we're going to cover in this lesson. Number one, the variance that a winning player can expect to see during his career and that he's going to have to overcome. Number two, my bankroll management strategy for cash games. And number three, my bankroll management strategy for tournaments. Number four, we're going to look at a challenge I gave myself to turn $0 into $10,000 using these very bankroll management strategies. Luck and variance are a big part of poker, and so no matter how good a poker player you are always going to lose occasionally. In fact, you're going to go on long losing streaks occasionally, and a lot longer than people realize. I think even the best poker players in the world can't expect to win more than about 2/3 of the time. Now that doesn't mean that they're going to win twice, lose once, win twice, lose once. Poker by its very nature is extremely streaky. You're going to go on very long winning streaks. I mean, I know players who've won 30 sessions in a row. And that's quite amazing. But by the same token, these same players might lose 15 or more sessions in a row. Tournaments are even worse. Generally, tournaments pay about 10% of the field. So the average player expects to win cash 1 out of every 10 times. And often, you know, if they place low, they're only getting their buy-in back. What good is that? Now, great players, they might be able to cash maybe 1/7 of the time, 1/8 of the time. But again, where all the money is in these tournaments is in the top 2 or 3 places. You need to occasionally win or occasionally place second in these tournaments to continue going. And I mean, you could go years without getting a first or second place finish in these major big tournaments. So tournaments are much more streaky and much more dangerous to your bankroll if you're not managing your bankroll carefully. My rules for proper bankroll management in cash games are very simple. In fact, there are only 2 rules. Rule number 1, never buy into a game for more than 5% of your bankroll. Rule number 2 is, if you ever have more than 10% of your bankroll on the table at any given time, you have to quit that game. These rules are very strict and they're never to be violated. For example, if you see a high limit cash game with some very weak opponents in it, but it's over your bankroll, do not buy into that game. It's just too dangerous. And yes, you may be a lot better than these players, but there's so much variance in poker, it's just not worth the risk. However, if you see a smaller game that has a very weak field and you can get anywhere near the earn you get in your regular game, that's the game you should be playing because the variance is going to be a lot smaller in that smaller game. A lot of poker players, when they go on a losing streak, they actually get very frustrated and they actually move up in limits, and that's the worst thing you can do. What my bankroll management rules do is, if you go on a losing streak, they actually force you to move down in limits. If you buy in for 5% of your bankroll and you lose that over 10 sessions, you might have lost about 50% of your bankroll. That means you're going to have to move down in limits. And this is what's going to save your bankroll in the long run. Move down, if the game is presumably softer, you're going to be able to win that game and you're going to be able to move back up. If you move up into a higher game, the chances are you're going to go broke. You can't keep winning using that strategy. Sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll lose. When you lose, you broke and you're out of the game and you got to borrow money, and that's the worst thing that can happen to a poker player. My bankroll management strategies for tournaments are broken into 2 categories. First, one table sit and goes. The second category is multi-table sit and goes and multi-table tournaments. For one table sit and goes, the rule is simple. Never buy in to a one table sit and go for more than 5% of your bankroll. For multi-table sit and goes and for multi-table tournaments, the rule is 2% of your bankroll. Never buy into a multi-table tournament or multi-table sit and go for more than 2% of your bankroll. I really wanted to demonstrate how important these bankroll management strategies are and how helpful they are to players. So I gave myself basically a challenge. The challenge was to turn $0 on full tilt into 10,000. Well, how do you turn $0 into anything? And the answer is, on Full Tilt Poker, they have things called free roll tournaments, which have no entry fee. And back when I was playing them, would actually pay out a total of $40 to the top 18 players. I think $2 each for the top 18, except second place would get $3 and first place would get $5. And I think they had a maximum of 900 players in them. And as today, you had to enter really early. If you didn't enter within the first 45 seconds or first minute the tournament opened, you probably wouldn't get in. So I'd be in my office, I'd just enter that tournament as soon as I could. I had my watch set, it'd beep me, I'd go enter the tournament. 20 minutes later, I think it was maybe 20 minutes from the time it started till the time you started playing, I would start playing in these tournaments. And now, you'd think Chris Ferguson playing in a free roll tournament, he wouldn't care. He really wouldn't care much about the tournament, but nothing could be further from the truth, because I'm trying to prove a point. I'm trying to turn this $0 into 10,000. So that $2 is very valuable to me. So I'm on my terminal, and I got my cards up there, and I'm sweating. I'm playing as hard as I possibly can. Believe me. I mean, I was trying my hardest to win these free roll tournaments just to get my $2. And then I get my $2. Now, what do I do with my $2? Now, admittedly, there aren't small enough games on Full Tilt where I'd be allowed to use these bankroll management strategies with a bankroll of $2. So I did allow myself, always using these bankroll strategies for this 0 to 10,000 challenge, I always allowed myself to buy into any cash game for $2.50 or less, and any tournament for $1, and basically I stuck by those rules. So when I won my first free roll and I got $2, I'm not sure exactly where I finished, but I had these $2. I was sitting around and I was thinking, what am I going to do with this $2? And I kind of strategized for like 3 days, deciding what game I was going to play. I decided to play No Limit Hold'em. The minimum buy-in was $2, so I had to buy in for my entire stack. I think it was a 5-cent, 10-cent game. Buy in for my entire stack. Before the button got around to me, I was broke. I forget exactly what the hands were, but it was basically a coin flip. I was broke and I had to start over again. Yeah, you can see on this graph, I guess it doesn't show it too well, but it actually took me 9 months to go from 0 to 100. And it took me another 9 months to go from 100 to 10,000. And basically what I would do is I played mostly No Limit Hold'em, mostly No Limit Hold'em cash games. I played some tournaments, but I always obeyed these bankroll management rules. I'd never buy into a game for more than 5% of my bankroll. If I ever had more than 10% of my bankroll in a game, I would actually quit out of that game. And tournaments, I never buy into a tournament for more than 2% of my bankroll. And these were very, very, very strict rules. And I actually continued on after I hit 10,000. I continued on, and I think at my high point, I had 28,000 in my bankroll. And then I went on a losing streak. I went on a very long losing streak. I went from 28 down to 20. Down to 15, down to 12, down to 10, and even dipped below 10 for a little bit. And it was a very eye-opening experience, because I was actually able to see what poker players go through. It really affected me in that I could tell that it would affect my concentration in the smaller games. I was used to playing 25-50 at one point. With 28,000, I was able to play in the 25-50 buy-in games. And now I had to dip down. I could only play in the 5-10, and sometimes I'd even dip down to the 2-4. It really had an effect that I wasn't taking the games as seriously as I should. Now that's very bad. If that happens to you, you really need to take a break. You really need to take a break from poker, take time off, and come back and focus on the game. What I did learn was that when I'm playing in that smaller game, I convinced myself to play that smaller game just as strong as I would play in the bigger game. And the reason is that if I don't focus and play well in that smaller game, I'm going to continue to lose. I know a lot of players that they move down in limits, they don't take the game nearly as seriously as they do in the higher limits. And I mean, they're used to a lot of action. Now they don't have that action, so they want to play more pots. They try and get trickier because they think they're that much better than, I'm way better than a 5-10 player. I'm a 25-50 player. I can really outplay these guys. Well, I got news for you. The 25-50 players just beat you. Now you got to pay. You got to pay your dues. If they beat you, you got to pay your dues. You got to play the 5-10. And if you don't try your hardest in this game, you're going to have to end up having to play the 2-4. The best thing to do is if you don't feel you're playing your best, take a break. Take a break from poker. Do something else. Come back, and I guarantee you'll be a better poker player when you come back. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this lesson on bankroll management. And next time you're playing, just remember, never buy in for more than 5% of your bankroll. And that's going to give you the best chance to stay in the action.